Morning, India. Morning, India.
How would like me?
How are you?
Good.
Good. Did you do anything this weekend?
No.
No. Me neither. Not really. Chance, come here. What are you doing? Let me see my little dog down here. There he is.
Come on, guys. I always like to get a weird one.
You want to see something real funny? Look at this. Can you see it? Come here. Give me your little head.
Oh my god.
Crazy hair.
I really do.
I know. He is so silly. Yeah, you're silly. You're a silly boy. Yeah. He's very needy lately. Very needy. All right, well, we'll give everybody a few minutes to get on. I hope there's more than just the two of us, but we'll see. Did math just end, India?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll give everybody.
No, it ended like 10 minutes ago.
All right, well, that's good. Give everybody a few minutes to get on.
I didn't need to put in a password.
Really?
Yeah.
India, did you have to put in a password?
No.
I had to for math though.
Well, I set it up this morning to require a password. So
Nice,
That-
I guess.
that is odd. I'll have to look at that after because I thought that they were required now too.
Right, that's what Oren said.
Morning, Destiny.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
How was math?
It was okay.
Just okay.
It was okay.
Hi, Anya.
That's so funny. I just got a text saying they're not going to do this test.
Tomato.
It's the like monthly test.
Yeah, but now it's
But I got like a, alert saying there will be no siren test this month.
Yeah, that's weird. There it is. Well, hope we're not having a real tornado. That would be unfortunate.
What a crazy coincidence that would be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's from the county and we can just hear it. Because I got a text about the city not doing one, so maybe
That might be true because I feel like we have one like literally right in our backyard. So I feel like it would be a lot louder than it actually is. I don't know. I'll give everybody a few more minutes. Today is going to be similar to Friday's assignment, which a lot of you, maybe not necessarily here, but a lot of people just didn't do. I guess there was some confusion because math didn't really have an assignment, but ELA still has assignments on Fridays. So if you didn't complete that, you're going to want to go do that first because that's chapter 1 of the book that we're reading, and we're going to start with chapter 2 today. Hi, Mardale. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Ooh.
You just wake up?
Yeah.
he was in math.
Glad you're here. Maybe you took a little nap.
Yeah.
Took a little nap. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what we're doing today. Hopefully more people will join us.
What you said?
Okay. So today, on Friday, we read the first chapter of Claudette Colvin. Again, if those of you did not do Friday's assignment, you're going to want to go do that first before doing today's. You're going to have a lot of work to do, but that's all right. Today, we're going to continue with chapter 2. It's very similar to how Friday was. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
You're going to either read or listen to chapter 2. We've got some questions that we're doing along with it, and then you'll have an exit ticket as well. Today's exit ticket looks a little different than Friday's just because it's in a document rather than a form. Well, let me get everybody in here. Those of you who did complete Friday's exit ticket, I did not see very many CERs. A CER needs to have at least these sentences, right? Last just put like one sentence. Jenny.
Only 8 of us in here.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Sorry, trying to figure something out. Okay. Hi, Xavier. Oh, okay, I wasn't sure who Jenny was. Cool.
You look sick.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm not sick. I just didn't get ready this morning. So thank you.
Oh.
I exercised.
Miss Eichmann is taking care of herself and exercising.
I did. I worked out this morning. But
Oh,
thank
that's
you.
why your face is red.
Yes, thanks.
And
Anyways,
miss this.
continuing on, I'm just going to cover up my camera here.
Yeah, you should do that. No, not with a book.
You guys
Not with a book.
face instead of mine. So I'm gonna say everything over just for those of us that joined. Good morning. Glad you guys are here. If you did not complete Friday's assignments, you're gonna need to go back and do that first. I think most everyone that's here now did it. Possibly not all of you though. Mark Price, I don't think I got anything from you. Siersha, I don't know that I had anything from you. So if you read that first chapter, great, you need to go back and answer these questions and do the exit ticket, okay? Once you've done that, you're caught up. You did everything for Friday. Awesome. We are going to I need to mute you all here.
Why are you jumping around like a horse?
All right, there we go. Today we're continuing on. We're reading chapter 2 of that book. Very similar to Friday. You've got some questions. As you read that chapter, it's going to tell you to stop and answer question 1. Stop and answer question 2, just like we do in class, like always. You're going to answer these questions in this Google form. Once you're done, please make sure you click submit. That is very important. And then you have an exit ticket. That's all we're doing today. It's pretty straightforward. I think what I'm going to do is, for those of you that are here, I'm going to play the audio recording. I'll pause it, give you a chance to answer that question, and just continue it like that. That way, if you guys want to work ahead, or if you're like, I'm good, I'm going to do this on my own, you can still log back in and ask me questions. Does that make sense? Who is not muted?
1 second.
Mardale, go ahead.
1 second. I gotta go get something.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Anybody do anything this weekend? I know you can't really go anywhere, but anybody watch anything funny or read anything cool? Just
I did.
Xavier, go ahead. Then Devay, we'll hear from you.
So this Thursday, it's gonna be my sister's birthday, and since we can't go nowhere, we're making her a cake, and I don't really want to do that.
And you're gonna bring a piece to me, right?
I can't go nowhere.
Well, that's fine.
I ain't got no car.
It's fine. I'll come pick it up. How about that?
Okay.
Bring me one too.
Y'all is fat.
Oh, y'all fat
Go in
kids.
y'all room.
Guys, fat.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Boy-headed kids.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I
Tell
know
her
this
happy
ain't talking.
birthday, okay? Earsha, please mute yourself.
Never mind.
What did you do this weekend?
Me?
Yeah.
I watched a good movie. It's called Coffee and Kareem.
What's it about?
It's about this little boy that don't want his mama to date a white man. So he tried to get him killed.
Wow,
and then his mama had got kidnapped.
that sounds intense,
So
but it was good.
at the end, it worked out.
Well, that's good. Anybody watching Tiger King on Netflix? No?
No.
Nope.
It's crazy. I don't know. It's all about like the
It's like me.
I have watched a show called
exposing.
The Heist.
You what?
He said he wants a show called The Heist.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that show.
It's also
It's that
Oh, it was
one.
good. It was pretty wild. I finished it. I also watched Onward this weekend. If you guys haven't
What?
seen
I
that,
did too.
it is so good.
Me too.
I'm ready to watch it again.
No.
That's
I
what
don't
my
like
mama
it.
did.
I don't like it.
It was
I
so
watched
good.
it.
It was so good. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get started today. Hope you guys did something enjoyable this weekend. Getting outside. It was kind of chilly this weekend, but it's supposed to be nice today. So like I said, I'm literally just gonna play the audio recording. That way you can listen to it's not Claudette herself, but it's kind of cool. The narrator like changes her voice based on who's speaking. The majority of chapter 1 was narrated by our author. Okay, so we only heard a little piece of Claudette's actual voice in the first paragraph. The majority of the chapter today is all Claudette speaking. So we have very few pieces where it's the author, and I think you'll find that we learn a lot more because Claudette is directly telling her perspective of certain parts of her story rather than the author just like putting it in their own words. So I'm going to play this. As we come across questions, I'll have this pulled up as well. If you need to answer on paper, or if you can have this form pulled up while we work, whatever works best for you, figure it out and we will get started. Questions before we begin? I've given you the power to unmute yourself because I want you to be able to just unmute yourself and ask questions as we're reading through this, but please don't do it to make obnoxious comments. Xavier,
Exactly.
India,
Okay, then I'll make sure it works.
okay. Xavier, are you good?
I'm in the Zoom link thing. So how would I get to the work if I'm in Zoom?
Why don't you, are you using your phone or your computer?
Computer.
Why don't you just you can open up a second tab in the internet. So like these are all different tabs. You can see my screen.
I can't do that.
Okay,
It's
well
not
then
showing me how.
why don't you just get another piece of paper then, and you can write down your answers and send me a picture. Cool.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If anyone else needs to do the same, I'm fine with that, just as long as I get that picture. All right, here we go. We're going to start with chapter 2. First paragraph we're looking for is two things that we learned about Claudette Colvin in that first paragraph.
Oh, God.
Chapter 2. Coot. To me, God loved everyone.
Can you guys hear that okay?
Not at all.
Not at
No.
all.
Why would he curse just us?
It sounds weird.
It's kind of like low.
Wait, let me try it now. I turned it up.
Coot.
That's better.
To me, God loved everyone. Why would he curse just us? Claudette Colvin. I was born Claudette Austin, September 5th, 1939 in...
Is that loud enough, or would you guys prefer that I read it?
I prefer you reading it. Literally.
Any
That was
other
loud enough.
opinions? Okay.
That was loud enough. He always having trouble with hearing.
Right. Like your dad or something. What's wrong with you?
I'm not deaf. My computer
You
messing
act
up.
like
It's
it.
good, Miss Eichmann. It's good, Miss Eichmann.
Okay.
Right.
It's messing up.
Xavier,
not.
why don't you try to turn up the volume on your computer? You're still
My
having
volume is all the way up.
Okay.
Yeah, you just definitely.
Hey, India. What did I say about unmuting yourself and
Okay,
comment?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Birmingham. My mom named me after Claudette Colbert, a movie star back then, supposedly because we both had high cheekbones. My biological father's name is C.P. Austin. And my birth mother's name is Mary Jane Gadsden. CP left my mother to look for a job, stayed away for a year, and came back just long enough for my sister Delphine to be born. Then he took off again. When he came back a third time and wanted to stay, my mother finally said no.
Keep pausing a second. Keep pausing.
And I was
Question?
No. But I need to write down this. Never mind. Just keep going.
just a baby. I went off to live with my great aunt, Mary Ann Colvin, and my great uncle, Q.P. Colvin, in a little country town called Pine Level, about 30 miles down Highway 231 from Montgomery.
So your first question, remember, was 2 things that we learn about Claudette so far. I'm going to leave these first 2 paragraphs up here for a moment. That way you can get your 2 things in your mind. And then you can either switch to your Google form on your device or write it down on a piece of paper. 2 things that we learned about Claudette Colvin so far. It can be very simple.
Stop. I'm doing something.
Again, if you have a question, just unmute yourself. Let me know. You're finding those 2 things and answering them. Ugh, this is a mess. Answering them in your Google form. Why can't I get to that? There we go. Type your answer in here. I'm moving on in about 30 seconds.
Can you not move on?
You got 30 seconds.
All right. I'm trying to find out how to work this computer.
If you need to, Mardale, you can just write down your answers on a piece of paper too and text it to me.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Or go put them in the spreadsheet later. That's fine too.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Is this a girl or a boy?
Claudette Colvin is a woman.
Okay.
Everybody ready? Need more time?
Yeah, want like 30 more seconds, please?
All right. You got it.
Can you go back on like the story so I can see this piece of evidence that I'm looking for?
Absolutely. If I can find it, where did it go? Here we go.
Thanks. Oh yeah, and she was born in 19. Okay.
Your
Miss,
second question. Go ahead.
is we supposed to answer both questions or just question 1?
Just question 1. We haven't made it to question 2 yet.
Okay.
Once you're ready, just wait patiently. I'm going to move on in about 10 seconds. All right, here we go.
Mary Ann and QP are the ones I call Mom and Dad. They were a lot older than my birth parents, more like my grandparents' age, but I loved them both, and I was happy to be with them. I think the reason they took me is that their only child, Velma, was away teaching school most of the year, so they had plenty of room for me. Later, Delphine came to live with us too, so I grew up in a quartet: Mary Ann, QP, Delphine, and me. And our dog Belle, and 2 horses, and lots of chickens, cows, and pigs. Back then, while World War II was going on, whenever one of our hens would lay a bad egg, we'd mark it with an H for Hitler. People always said I was smart. I don't know about that, but I was inquisitive for sure. I wondered about everything and asked about everything. Why don't the stars fall? Where is Japan? Is it different from China? How did God make the earth so fast in 6 days? Did he make the stars too? When Belle died, Would she go to heaven? Shouldn't Easter be on a Monday? Weren't there supposed to be 3 days after the crucifixion? So it'd be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right?
All right, let's go ahead and look at question 2. We've learned a little bit more about Claudette. Question 2. This question has 2 parts. First, answer part A, then answer part B. First, read the sentence from the text. People always said I was smart. I don't know about that, but I was inquisitive for sure. I wondered about everything and asked about everything. Part A. What does the word inquisitive mean as it is used in the sentence? Here it is right here. A, intelligent, B, curious, C, annoying, or D, upbeat. So remember those strategies we've learned about context clues. If you know based on the context of the sentence, look for that answer choice. If you're not sure, plug in that word that you're not sure about and reread the sentence to yourself. Ask yourself, does that make sense?
Can you reread that?
I would love to.
I'll read.
People always said I was smart. I don't know about that, but I was inquisitive for sure. I wondered about everything and asked about everything. Does that mean intelligent? Does that
No.
mean curious? Mardale. Does that mean annoying or does that mean upbeat? Again, if you're not sure, plug one of these words in that you think it could be in place of inquisitive and reread the sentence. Part B asks, which key words from the sentence help you choose your answer in part A? Copy them below. So like there should be maybe 1 or 2 words from this sentence that led you to your answer in part A. You're just doing question 2, part A and part B. Again, if you need to write down your answers on notebook paper, totally fine.
Hagmer,
Yes.
can you go back up so I can see the word? Oh, never mind.
You see it?
Never mind. I got never mind. Could it be 2 extra choices in here?
There's one best one.
All right, yeah. I got it.
30 more seconds, move on. Any questions? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Make sure you do part B as well.
And asked about everything. About everything. And
All right.
Or Dad, can you mute yourself?
I just muted him. Don't worry, India. Here we go.
sorry.
Biggest mystery of all was how the white man came to dominate us. In the South, it was taught that white people were better than blacks. Somehow they were the masters and we were there to work for them. My mom said white people thought God made them special. My Sunday school teacher said we had been cursed by one of Noah's sons. I didn't buy that at all. To me, God loved everyone. Why would he just curse us? My mom thought she was as good as anyone else. So did I. One day I told my pastor, Reverend H.H. Johnson, I don't want to serve a God that would have a cursed race. He seemed proud of me for saying that. I was a tomboy, tall and skinny and very fast, and I loved to be outdoors. I could climb trees as well as anyone. My best friend, Annie Ruth Baines, and I knew every trail and shortcut from Pine Level to our homes. A no trespassing sign meant nothing at all to us. In the summer, we would count the insect tracks in the sand across the road and try to figure out what bug made which track. We were walking to school together the first time we ever got close to a skunk, right out in the middle of the road. We ran up to pet it and got sprayed. The teacher took one sniff and sent us home. Pine Level didn't have much more than a few shacks for the sharecropper families, a schoolhouse, a church, and a general store. But I was at home in all of it. I floated free and slept at the homes of my mom's friends as much as in my own bed. They all raised me together. Some nights I ended up at Baby Tail's house. She was my mom's best friend, plump and short and always happy to see me. She lived in an old farmhouse, a The biggest house in Pine Level. White people used to own it, and we never knew exactly how Baby Tail's family got it. Her attic was full of paintings and an organ and an old spinning wheel. Annie and I used to look out the attic window and pretend the Yankee soldiers were about ready to come charging over the hill. Other nights, I slept at Mama Sweetie's, a tiny woman in her 60s who was the best reader in Pine Level. She had read the entire Bible many times. She had her own blue-covered Webster's Dictionary. Mama Sweetie taught practically every child in Pine Level their ABCs and how to write their names and how to count to 100 using peanuts. She cooked for all the people when they came in from the fields. Baby Tail and Mama Sweetie were like sisters to my mom and mothers to me. They loved me to keep them company. My nonstop talking and constant questions seemed to drive my mom crazy, but it didn't bother them at all. They loved that about me. Our school was a one-room white wooden building with red trim. Annie and I walked.
So this is a picture. It doesn't really explain it, but this is like a picture of a typical schoolhouse that she's explaining. So there's like the pot-bellied stove in the center. That's what they would heat up. They would be like used for warmth, but in this particular school during this time, because schools were segregated still, this is like what a typical African American school looked like. Everyone learned in the same room, so that means that there probably wasn't a lot of equal opportunities in regards to like the things that the education that Black people were able to get when schools were.
It was like racism.
Yes, but if we're looking at that vocab chart, let me pull that up, because remember each of those terms had a specific definition. So racism is the action or belief that one race is superior to another. So the separation of schools would actually be more like segregation, right? They probably they did segregate schools because the belief was that white people were superior to a Black person, which we know that that is obviously not true. But during that time, schools were segregated, and African American schools were not equal in terms of the resources and the physical space that the white schools had. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to explain that.
Walked there together every day, lunch sacks in one hand, book sacks in the other. It had a pot-bellied stove in the middle and a picture of Abraham Lincoln on the wall. One teacher taught all 6 elementary grades and sat us in sections around the room, grade by grade, 2 to a desk. The room was rarely full because students kept being pulled away to do farm work. A farmer would just appear in the doorway and yell, "I need 2 boys to help with the cows," and they'd be out the door in a flash.
So we're gonna pause, go ahead and look at question 3.
Okay, Mama said, go, your teacher just called. She said, go to one of the old.
Jason, mute yourself, please. Question 3, Blake, I'm glad you were able to join us. We've got a chapter that we're reading together, and we've got some questions we're answering as well. So Blake, if you're able to pull up the Claudette Colvin chapter 2 questions, it's under today's assignment. We're on question 3. You can just join us with question 3 and catch back up. If you need to also write your answers on paper, that is fine too. Okay, question 3. I've included this photo because you'll need it. I'm going to read the picture and then I'm going to read the question, then I'll come back to the picture. What does the picture from page 13 contribute to the overall message of chapter 2? So this is one of those where you're kind of evaluating, okay, what does this picture add to the chapter that we're reading? The caption says, Spring Hill School in Pine Level, where Claudette attended elementary school, was newer than the school in rural Georgia pictured here. But like many schools for African American children, it had 1 room, 1 teacher, and 6 grades, and a pot-bellied stove for heat. So this would be like, imagine if kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Like at Live for Life Academy, imagine kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 6th, 7th, and 8th all learned in the same classroom and had one teacher, do you think that you would be able to learn very much?
No,
Why not?
Not at all.
too close.
Somebody explain. Hold on. Who's talking?
You want
Devay, go ahead.
Because not only does she have to teach sixth grade, but she got other classes too.
Yeah. There's
And
too
she
many kids
teaches
to
other
teach
classes.
and too many different grades because are kindergartners learning the same things that sixth graders are learning? Not even close, right?
That's very intelligent.
Yeah. Malachi, is that you?
Yeah.
Hi, Malachi.
Bless you. What?
All right, so let's look at the question again. What does this picture contribute to the overall message of chapter 2? You have to ask yourself, okay, why did the author choose to include that? What is it adding to the understanding, to our understanding of this chapter? A, it provides the reader with a solution to some of the problems that Claudette faced. You have to ask yourself, is this picture giving us a solution to some of her problems? B, it provides the reader with a visual image of Claudette herself. Ask yourself, is Claudette in this picture? Do we know that she's in this picture?
We don't know if she's in the picture.
Okay, I'm going to read the answer choices.
There's a lot of black childs in there. I think.
Just listen. It provides the reader with an example of racial inequality during the 1940s. I want to break this down a little bit. Does anyone know what racial inequality means?
No.
Hold on, let's raise your hands. You all have the power to unmute yourselves. Do the little virtual hand raise or raise your physical hand if you have your video.
For some reason, it won't let me do that on my computer.
All right, go ahead, Xavier.
Could you reread that? Because now I forgot the question.
What does racial inequality mean? Or what do you think it means?
Like when black people were slaves.
Okay, anyone else? Other ideas? Racial inequality. Let me ask you this. Oh, who is that? Malachi, is that you? Somebody said
Hello?
Is that you that says iPhone, Malachi?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. What do you think?
I think it's like I think they're talking about like when on a picture it shows that it shows that they doing two. It's like
What
two
is this
kids.
word?
Hold up, Sam. So like two kids. Not two kids. Two like different grades, and they're trying to learn the same thing to make it difficult for them to learn.
Racial inequality means that
Let me help you, Scott. Let me see what.
that the resources and things that people had were not equal. So for example, schools were segregated during this time that we're reading about. However, white schools, do you think that an all-white school looked like this, where kids were packed into one room and they had one teacher? No, it did not. Meaning that that was an inequality, right? So things were not equal depending on the race that it was for. Let's look at D. It provides the reader with a visual of how schools for African American children looked in the 1940s. So again, you're referring back to this picture, back to the caption, choosing the best answer choice. What does this picture add for us? Does anyone have any questions? Anyone need any of the answer choices repeated? Mardale, go ahead.
Does racial inequality mean like separated between like your skin color or something like that?
It could be, yeah. Absolutely. Again, you're going back to this picture, asking yourself which one of these best answer choices shows what it's doing for us in the context of the chapter. 30 more seconds and I'm going to keep moving.
So can you go back down to the answer choices?
I would love to.
What's up, Aunt?
I bet you whoever phone that was, if we was in class, Miss Icon would take
You're right, -1.
it.
All right, everybody good? Cool. Keep going.
I loved school. I memorized the Dick and Jane reader so my teacher would think I could already read. One day, she asked me to read aloud, but I got way out ahead of the text.
Miss Eichmann,
What's going on?
Yes.
it's a little too loud.
Now it's too loud.
Yeah.
Turn your volume down.
She told my parents to take me to Montgomery to get my eyes checked. I learned the entire second grade in advance just by listening to Annie. She was a year older than me, and by hearing Mama Sweetie read from her Bible and her Webster's Dictionary. When it came time for me to start second grade, I could already read and write and spell and even do some arithmetic. They tested me and told me to go sit with the third graders. After that, I was always younger than the other kids in my class. I knew plenty of white people, and they knew me. You had to be very careful around them. They never called the adults Mr. or Miss or Mrs. They used their first names instead. Or sometimes they made up little nicknames to dominate us. I was Coot. The doctor gave that name to me when I was little to distract me from the shot he was about to give. He sang, "Oh, she's the cutest little thing." But it came out Coot, and the name stuck.
We're going to pause, answer question 4. This one's just like a quick comprehension question. Why is this chapter titled Coot? So think about what we just read. I can pull up that last paragraph. Why is this chapter called Coot or titled Coot? Where did that come from? Refer back to this paragraph if you don't remember. I'll give you about a minute, then we'll move on. What's up, Xavier? You need help?
No, I'm just bored.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not from you, from my sister.
I'm done.
All right, 30 more seconds and I'm going to move on. You're answering that
I'm about to
question
go.
4.
I'm about to go to sleep in a minute.
Sorry, Xavier, I'm muting you. No falling asleep, -1.
-100.
Device. All right, here we go.
Gave that name to me when I was little to distract me from the shot he was about to give.
Here's the answer.
He sang,
Get it.
"Oh,
Exactly.
she's the cutest little
Okay.
India,
I'm not done.
finish up.
thing." But it came out
Exactly.
Coot, and the name stuck. I was very religious. Annie and I played church together outside her house, setting up chairs and doing services. Her brother would be the pastor, or she would be since she was older. I'd be the shouter. The second Sunday of every month, the Reverend H.H. Johnson came out from Montgomery and pastored a service at our little church in the country. We'd call it Big Meeting Sunday. People would flock in from everywhere in cars, wagons, whatever they could get to move. On a big meeting Sunday, we'd pull up to church at noon and wouldn't get home until dark. First, there'd be regular church, then a program, then a glee club competition, then another sermon, then different choirs would sing. You'd have food all day long and come home stuffed. I remember this one big meeting Sunday. I was riding on the back of the truck before the service started to go get ice at the general store. It was about 11 a.m., and we passed Mr. Jones, the white man who owned our property, walking to his own church. It was hot, and he had his blazer slung over his shoulder. His Baptist church was just a short distance from the store. 45 minutes later, we were coming back with the ice, and we passed him again, walking the other way. He was already out of church. That was just one more thing that seemed different about white people. How could anyone serve God on Sunday in less than an hour?
All right, question 5. Question 5. This question has 2 parts. First answer part A and then answer part B. Part A. Who has been narrating chapter 2 so far? Let's do these two together because we haven't really discussed. Somebody raise your hand either this way or the virtual hand raise. Who has been narrating chapter 2 so far? Meaning who has been speaking throughout chapter 2 so far? Malachi, go ahead.
Charlotte Clubbin.
Who?
Charlotte Clubbin.
Claudette Colvin. Good.
Claudette Clubbin.
Answer choice for part A is Claudette Colvin. She has been speaking directly to us. We're hearing her exact words. Mardale?
Can you go back up a little bit? Can you go back up one question? Because it's just like, okay. So this is question 5, part A, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Nice job. So now one thing that I want to kind of explain to you is that throughout the book, we see these 3 little dots, right? We're encountering them right now as we're moving past question 5, and we saw it some of the time in chapter 1 as well. Does anyone have an idea what these 3 little dots might signal or what they mean? Do they?
That mean the narrator finna switch. Somebody else will.
Exactly. It means that we are switching who is narrating. So if Claudette Colvin was narrating this part, who do you think is narrating now? If we see these 3 little dots, we're switching narrators. Who is speaking during this paragraph we're about to read?
The author.
The author. Good. So that's just something I want to make sure you understand. So on your questions for question 5, part A, who has been narrating chapter 2 so far? Claudette Colvin has been narrating. Part B, what do the 3 dots in between paragraphs symbolize? The speaker in the book is changing. So now we're switching to the author speaking. He's going to speak and add some background information, and then we will switch back to Claudette. Questions? Cool. Nice job so far, guys.
When Claudette turned 8, Mary Ann Colvin inherited a house in Montgomery. Excited to live in a place of their own, the family loaded their belongings, including a horse named Mac, into the back of a neighbor's cattle truck and pushed off for Alabama's capital city. Their new home was a small frame house in a tiny hilltop neighborhood sandwiched between 2 white subdivisions on Montgomery's northeast side. King Hill, as the neighborhood was called, consisted of 3 unpaved streets lined with red shotgun shacks and frame houses like the Colvins. Toilets were out of doors. Though King Hill had a citywide reputation as a depressed and dangerous neighborhood, the Colvins found it to be an extremely close-knit community where people knew and looked out for one another. Neighbors sat on their front porches fanning the humid air while children played in a small nearby park with a recreation center. Sad at first to leave Annie and the open countryside, Claudette soon made her peace with city life. I slept with Delphine in the back bedroom with our own little fireplace. She would say her prayers as fast as she could and then jump into bed, waiting for me to hurry up and finish mine. I was a serious prayer, asking for help in this and that and blessing about everyone I knew. But Delphine just whipped.
So remember, we saw these 3 little dots. Now Claudette is speaking again.
Through the Lord's Prayer and jumped into bed. As soon as I got in, she'd be talking and talking, asking me how to spell this word and that. And then she'd start singing songs she'd heard on the radio and twitching and squirming around with new dances. Delphine could keep me awake all night. Daddy QP had his own special chair in the front room, and no one else could sit in it. He was a small man, too small for the army, they said, but he was wiry and strong, and he could do anything. He had built our house in pine level, and there was very little he couldn't make, grow, or fix. And he was fun. On Sunday mornings, I'd sit on the floor next to him and he'd read me the funnies. We had an electric fan, but we only used it on Sundays because it sucked down electricity so fast. We didn't get a TV until the bus boycott, but our radio ran off a battery that gave us about an hour at a time of a white station, WSFA. My favorite show was Mr. Comedian, about this detective who worked in disguise. I listened to the Grand Ole Opry too. The star of the show was Hank Williams, a famous country singer from Montgomery. When he died, his funeral drew the biggest crowd in the history of the city. Hank Williams' wife invited the Black community to attend since so many of us liked his music. But Mom wouldn't let me go because the funeral was segregated.
What do they mean? What does Claudette mean that the funeral was segregated? Somebody raise your hand.
She means that.
Maybe somebody I
She
haven't
means-
heard from. Hold on, Mardale.
Alright.
Destiny, go ahead.
Wait, what's your question again?
What does Claudette mean that the funeral was segregated?
Like the people had to be separated.
What do you mean by the people?
The black and the white.
Right. Good. Question 6. Why was Claudette not allowed to go to Hank Williams' funeral? You're answering that either on the Google form or writing it on a piece of paper. I'll give you a minute or so since we just talked about it. Nice job so far, guys. We've got about 2-3 pages left, couple questions, and then you'll have an exit ticket, and that's it for today. Thirty more seconds, then we'll move on. All right, here we go.
I loved going downtown. Montgomery had stores like J.J. Newberry's and Cress's 5 and 10, which opened onto Monroe Street, the main street for Black people. Out back of Cress's, there was a hot dog stand. A lady who worked there and knew my dad would stack up soda crates so I could sit down while I ate hot dogs and drank my soda. But downtown could make me very angry too. We could shop in white stores. They take our money all right, but they wouldn't let us try anything on. I never went into a fitting room like white people did. The sales lady would measure me and then go get the dress or the blouse and bring it out. She'd hold it up and tell me it was a perfect fit and expect my mom to buy it. When Delphine and I needed shoes, my mom would trace the shape of our feet on a brown paper bag and we'd carry the outline to the store because we weren't allowed to try the shoes on. You couldn't try on a hat either unless you put a stocking on your head. They said our hair was greasy. They said it in such a degrading way, they never said please or asked if we minded. Once, I went into a store with my mom and saw a beautiful Easter hat I really wanted. None of the other kids had that hat, but the sales lady kept bringing out different hats. For some reason, she didn't want me to have the hat I wanted. I got madder and madder. She kept saying, "Why don't you want this hat?" and holding up hats I didn't want. Finally, I got frustrated and answered, "Because my ears don't stick out like yours." My mom was horrified. She covered my mouth up and marched me out of the store. Another time.
Okay, question 7. Anyone have any questions so far? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Xavier?
Okay, so like the question before this one,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't get a chance to write my answer. I ain't get a chance to see what it was.
Okay, I'll go back to it at the end. Why don't you just leave a spot for your answer and then we can go back to it at the end. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question 7. Read the sentence from page 17, then answer question 7. Once I went into a store with my mom and saw a beautiful Easter hat I really wanted. None of the other kids had that hat, but the sales lady kept bringing me out different hats. For some reason, she didn't want me to have that hat that I wanted. Which of the following would this be an example of? I'm going to read your answer choices and then I'm going to pull up that vocab sheet. The fact that the sales lady didn't give Claudette the hat that she wanted, would that be an example of prejudice, racism, segregation, or discrimination? So here's that vocab sheet. Remember that prejudice is when it's an idea, right? It's when you have an opinion of someone or something that is not based on facts. So ask yourself, when the saleswoman refused to bring the hat that Claudette wanted, was she thinking an idea in her head, or was she actually acting upon some kind of idea? Racism. This is the action or belief that one race is superior to another. So not hiring someone based on their skin color. And another example of racism would be African Americans were unable to drink from white-only water fountains before 1965. Okay, so ask yourself, was she being prejudiced by physically not giving Claudette the hat that she wanted, or was she being racist? Let's look at segregation. This is when things are actually being separated, okay? So when that sales lady wasn't bringing the hat that Claudette wanted, was she showing an example of segregation? Some other examples would be the separation on the buses, the separation of the schools. Questions so far?
No.
Last, we have discrimination. This is an action, right? Someone physically doing something to show that they are unfairly treating a person based on their race, their gender, their age, their sexual orientation, could also be their religion. So an example of that could be not hiring someone just because they're older, firing a woman because she had to take a day off to take care of her sick children. That is discrimination. So when this saleswoman was not bringing Claudette the hat that she wanted, which of the following would that be an example of? I'll give you a hint. It has to be something that is an action, right? Because she was acting upon one of these 4 things by not giving Claudette the hat that she asked for. Is anyone totally confused? Give you a second to answer, then we're going to move on. If you have a question, just unmute yourself, let me know. We're going to do this same kind of thing for question 8 as well, so we'll get another chance to practice. I'm going to move on in about 30 seconds. We're almost there. Nice job. Here we go.
I had to go to the optometrist downtown. My dad and I got to the office early. I was the very first patient. There was only one chair in the waiting room. The doctor told us to leave and come back at the end of the day. I didn't understand why until I overheard my dad telling my mom about it when we got home. The optometrist wasn't going to let me sit in that chair until all the whites had sat in it first. He knew no white patient would ever sit in a chair that he'd seen a black sit in. There were so many places you couldn't go, and so many things you couldn't do if you were black.
Okay.
Oak Park was the nicest park in the city, just down the hill from...
Question?
Can I leave and do it by myself, or I gotta stay in here?
Absolutely. You can leave and do it by yourself. Don't forget to do
Okay.
the ID ticket too.
No,
Okay?
I'm gonna do it. I just don't.
Fine.
I want to read by myself because I'm getting a headache.
All right. No worries.
I'm out.
Okay.
From us, but
Hey.
blacks could only walk through it. If you tried to play ball or even sit down on the benches, the police would run you out.
Question 8, we're looking at that example when she's talking about the park. Read the sentence from page 17, then answer question 8. Oak Park was the nicest park in the city, just down the hill from us, but blacks could only walk through it. If you tried to play ball or even sit down on the benches, the police would run you out. So now we're bringing in like a layer of law enforcement, right? So the police officers were enforcing the fact that Black people could not play in this particular park. So looking at our vocab terms, would that be an example of someone being prejudiced? Would that be an example of someone being racist? Would that be an example of segregation? Or would that be an example of discrimination? If you're confused or you have questions, please just let me know. About 30 more seconds and we'll move on. Two more questions. We're almost done.
One year, we all got excited because there was going to be a rodeo with Roy Rogers and Dale Evans at the Montgomery Coliseum. They do one show for whites and another for blacks. My parents bought me a cowboy hat and bought cowboy boots for Delphine. QP kept our horse, Mac, in a pen out back, and every day we'd brush him until he shone, and we'd take turns getting rides in our new cowboy clothes. And then the word came down that Roy and Dale didn't have time to do two shows after all, so they were cutting hours. That was the South.
Question 9. Again, you're doing that same thing. Read the sentence from page 18, then answer question 9. One year, we all got excited because there was going to be a rodeo with Roy Rogers and Dale Evans at the Montgomery Coliseum. They do one show for whites and another for blacks. Which of the following would this be an example of? Would that be an example of prejudice, racism, segregation, or discrimination? I'll pull up that vocab sheet in case you need to reference that again. Remember that prejudice is an idea or opinion of someone, not based on facts. Racism is the action or belief that one race is superior to another. Segregation is actually separating things from another. So example would be the separation of white people from Black people on a bus, or would that be an example of discrimination? "30 seconds and I'm going to keep moving. We are almost done. You guys are doing a really great job today. I know these take a little bit longer to get through them like this, but I promise it's worth it. All right, here we go.
Claudette excelled as
Who's speaking right now? We just saw a little shift. Who's speaking now? Are you all awake still? Remember, we have these 3 little dots. Ask yourself who was talking in this paragraph. Now who's talking in this paragraph following those 3 dots? Destiny, go ahead.
The author.
Yes, the author is now narrating to us. Good, nice job.
And Dale didn't have time to do 2 shows after all,
Sorry, back
so
up
they
a
were
little bit.
cutting hours. That was the South. Claudette excelled as a student in junior high, even though she was younger than her classmates. Her parents bought her a dictionary of her own, giving her an advantage in classroom spelling contests. After school, she usually headed for the library, or, if her homework was light, to the King Hill Recreation Center, where she learned to crochet. She studied piano, too, until her mother, impatient for her favorite songs
That's
and
Claudette.
frustrated with Claudette constantly practicing scales, stopped paying for lessons. Late in the summer of 1952, just 2 weeks before Claudette was to begin her freshman year at Booker T. Washington High School, her sister Delphine came down with a fever Sunday just before church. Her temperature climbed steadily through the afternoon. By nightfall, her body was burning and the bedsheets were soaked with perspiration. Far worse, she couldn't move her arms and legs to get up. The family tried everything to break her fever, but nothing worked. They rushed her to a doctor the next morning.
Switching our narrator again. Now Claudette is speaking to us.
Polio came down on a lot of kids that summer. It shriveled the leg of one girl in our congregation and deformed the arm of a little boy. The doctor knew what it was as soon as he saw Delphine. He sent her to St. Jude Hospital and put her in an iron lung to help her breathe. She couldn't move. All she could do was whisper through her breath. That's what my mama said. I used to go in the car with them to visit, but Mom and QP made me wait outside the hospital. They didn't want me to get sick too, and they didn't want me to see Delphine like that. Once I tried to slip inside to see my sister, but a nurse caught me and led me back out screaming. I never saw Delphine alive again after the day she left our house to go see the doctor. The next time I saw her, she was dead. After that, I began to question everything. I asked God why he didn't answer my prayers. I asked, why would you take my sister? Why did you say no when I asked for my sister's deliverance? My mom disagreed with my thinking. She said, you prayed for Delphine's deliverance? Well, let me tell you what I was praying for. I was praying for God to take her, because I didn't want the devil to have the upper hand. I didn't want her to be paralyzed for the rest of her life. I said, Mom, I would have taken care of her. I would have gone to school to be a nurse and learned to take care of her. I would have too. Delphine died September 5th, 1952. It was my 13th birthday.
So the last question asks you to think about how Delphine's death will have changed Claudette, because that's a really terrible thing to experience as a 13-year-old. Her sister died. And she mentioned that polio was an illness that was really big during that time. It's something that we don't really see anymore because we've researched, we have vaccines and things like that, so we're protected. But a lot of people did die from polio, and her sister happened to be one of them, unfortunately. So chapter 10 just asks you to think about, how do you think that Delphine's death will change Claudette? Give me a piece of evidence or two once you're finished. You're submitting this form. After that, you're going to do this exit ticket. Again, I'm asking you to write a CER. Exit ticket question asks, what purpose does it serve for the author to include Claudette's personal stories into each section? Why do you think the author chose to put all of those personal stories directly from Claudette's perspective in this chapter? So just think about, what does that give to us as a reader? What does that help us see or understand? I am expecting that you have sentence starters that look similar to this, that you're giving me a paragraph, right? Friday's exit ticket asked you to write a CER as well. Most people gave me a sentence, if even that, okay? So you're first answering this last question 10. Don't overthink it. Just give me your opinion. Make sure you click submit. Then you're opening today's exit ticket, writing a full-fledged paragraph. Go back to this passage, to chapter 2 if you need to. It's right here. If you need to look for that evidence, kind of think about it, use your resources. Questions? All right, I'm gonna set you guys loose. If you need questions, or if you have questions or need help, I'm available. Feel free to call me or text me, or we can jump back on Zoom and do it together. But I'm gonna go ahead and end this now. Go ahead and finish up, and that's all for today. Thanks for being here, guys. Bye. Everyone's so quiet.
See you later, Miss Acme.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you have any questions?